広島の港ができるにあたってたくさんの方が漁師さんが漁場を失ったんですね。でその人たちはちょうど始まった漢訳移民でそのハワイに行かれました。その時にもやはりそのハワイに行くっていうことでその漁師さんたちもとっても沸き立ったみたいです。
He was a man who had ideas far beyond his actual time.
Was a pioneer in the labor movement in the islands.
He was a successful businessman, but he didn't think about himself. He helped his fellow immigrants. That's how he got into trouble.
To think he helped all these immigrants and to get killed.
It's an amazing story, and Katsu Goto had so much potential, and to have his life cut short, it's a compelling story that needs to be told. It just touches me deeply that his life was cut short when he was just 27 years old through lynching. This tragedy, this lynching happened in Hawaii.
Katsu Gotoのことももっとショッキングな最もショッキングなことだけれどもやっぱり一人一人に伝えておくべき出来事だろうと思いますね。
Some people say, "Oh, you know, this thing happened here. You know, this is a kind of a bummer. You know, it looks badly on our community." That's not the way to look at it. What it is that here somebody stood up. He contributed to this equality, freedom of expression and of assembly, and that happened here. So that's something for Honoka'a to be able to be proud of Hawaii to be proud of, especially, but Honoka'a because it happened here.
ホノカで彼の墓を訪れた時に、涙が出ましたね。その19世紀末という今とは全く異なるその労働状況、人種関係も違いますし、その中で、後藤勝が、どのような思いで過ごしたのかということを考えまして、そして彼の最後というのがとても、悲しいものでしたので、墓の前で涙が出ました。
Katsu Goto is truly a hero for me. He lost his life in an effort to promote the individual freedoms and interests of so many workers.
Katsu Goto comes to Hawaii. He works in menial labor for a period of time on the plantations, and then he starts his own store. This is the typical story throughout time, and you see this in thousands of families in Hawaii, that the store is the stepping stone for your children to get a better education and move to the professional class.
Katsu Goto was the first Japanese merchant in Honoka'a. That was unusual because that was very early for Japanese merchants, and the fact that he came here and expected to not spend his life working on the plantation was a sign that he was not only entrepreneurial but very ambitious.
英語ができるということでプランテーション主とそれとその労働者、英語ができない労働者の間のまさに仲介役ですよね。それでなんとかうまくことを収めようということで尽力された方だったんじゃないかと思いますね。
My mother used to tell about him. That's how I got to know about Katsu Goto. What he did, what he accomplished in his short life, tremendous amount of things he did.
So young, and he did so much for the working immigrants. Yeah, he wanted them to have a better life.
People flocked to his store, Japanese immigrants, because there was a connection to the old country.
How difficult it must have been to stand up to those people at the time, just to help his fellow Japanese on the plantation. Individuals that have fought this injustice through the years, even as long ago as 125 years, need to be remembered and celebrated.
This was a story that not many people know about. Even on Hawaii Island, there's not that many people that know about the story of Katsu Goto and the sacrifices he made for his fellow workers in the sugar plantation, and the example that he set for his generation of immigrants that came over from Japan.
In 2007, I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could have some kind of a book to chronicle Katsu Goto's amazing life and what he did. At that time, my children were really into manga. They sort of inspired me to try to pursue a graphic novel manga style. It was very fitting because it's like a movie. It's panel to panel, movement and action.
It should be an example to young people, to people forever, to stand up for what's right and to be a giver and be willing to suffer for it. Because sometimes someone has to step forward and be that person.
After the graphic novel was published by Best Press, I got a call from the Bishop Museum. They were doing a special exhibit and they were going to feature 5 treasures from their collection. And one of those treasures was Katsu Goto's watch. So the curator called me up and said, oh, Patsy, I have this idea of having the watch in a case and your book right next to it. And we got to talking about video project. And so Danny Miller and I, we created 2 short 4-minute videos for the Bishop Museum.
We interviewed local residents in Honoka'a that were familiar with the story of Katsu Goto and could really reflect on his life.
And it's a good thing we did because quite a few of them have already passed away, unfortunately. But we have their memories and their oral history about Katsu Goto on tape.
When I told my grandchildren, you're a descendant of this man, they said, wow. And so I said, now when you do your family tree in school, you have a great story to tell them. This is something that you can be proud of.
We thought, wow, the next step would be a documentary on Katsu Goto.
So Patsy and I started working on ideas how to put together a full-length documentary film about his life. I think that story of how one individual can come and help so many people and be generous with his time to open a store and to help his fellow workers and then to be cut short through a lynching is tragic, but at the same time, you can't help but celebrate his life and what he tried to do. It reminds everybody how one single person can change so many people's lives for the better. And while there's tragedy, there is a tremendous amount of hope in the film.
Many people from Hiroshima immigrated to the island of Hawaii, and he protected the rights and the lives of those people from Hiroshima. Fumiko Kaya, his adopted niece, was from Hiroshima, and she established Goto of Hiroshima Foundation and used the proceeds to send young people from Hawaii to Hiroshima for mutual understanding.
Dr. Fumiko Kaya was born in Honoka'a 90 years ago. She remembers her island days with affection. It's one reason why every year she sponsors a young person from Hawaii to visit.
Dr. Kaya never forgot her roots in Honoka'a, where she was born and raised for the first 5 years of her life. Back in 1985, during the centennial celebration of Japanese immigration to Hawaii, there was a documentary shown on Hiroshima television that she was watching. And that documentary talked about her uncle, Katsu Goto. That was the first time that she heard about this because her father, Sekijiro Kobayakawa, never talked about this unfortunate incident to her. Instead of responding in anger or bitterness about what happened to her uncle, she thought, how would she best be able to affect change in Hawaii and Japan and the world? And she felt that she wanted to create this foundation to increase mutual understanding and friendship and communication between Hawaii and Japan.
Here she was really helping people's lives as a doctor in Japan, and then she discovered that her uncle was trying to do the same thing for his fellow workers in Hawaii, and I think she was just amazed and inspired and dedicated her life to keeping his story alive.
Back in 1993, I applied for the Goto of Hiroshima Foundation Scholarship that was being administered by the Japanese Cultural Center of Hawaii on Oahu. And I didn't really know who Katsu Goto was, but as I was applying for the award, I did some research about him, and what I read and what I found out just made me want to put my all into applying for this grant. It was an amazing story, and it captured my heart and my spirit, and it still does.
Sony Super Express will be stopping at Shikobe, Wakayama, Hiroshima.
The YWCA of Oahu helped fund a trip to Japan in 2014. Their motto is eliminating racism and empowering women. So the story about Katsu Goto, as well as Dr. Fumiko Kaya being this amazing woman, was perfect for their mission. We were able to go to Hiroshima, where Dr. Kaya's son and daughter and their family still live, and talk to them about their memories of her.
つながってきてるっていうことを多分喜んでると思いますよ、それは。乾杯。
Going to Japan was an amazing trip, and we were able to film at locations that are extraordinarily beautiful and touching. We were able to go to the Hiroshima Memorial and film there, and it was a very powerful experience to be there and to be hearing these stories about Dr. Kaya's life, who eventually became a doctor in Hiroshima and also survived the atomic blast at Hiroshima. So in many ways, Dr. Kaya was a hero in Japan. Then she discovers her uncle's story and dedicates her life to keeping his story alive.
I was able to go to Oiso in Kanagawa, which is Katsu Goto's hometown. What was a bonus was to find out that there's also a gravesite for Katsu Goto was a just incredible surprise. This gravesite was a ceremonial type of gravesite because Katsu Goto's remains are in Honoka'a, where he was buried at the Hamakua Jodo mission. Kobayakawa Katsu. Wow. In a place of honor was Katsu Goto's gravesite, because Katsu Goto was a beloved son of Izaemon, that the father placed him right next to him, even though he was adopted by the Goto family and immigrated to Hawaii. And he knew that, you know, Katsu Goto wanted to fulfill his dreams. And it says, I am very sorry about what happened, about my son. And so I chose to erect this gravesite in his memory. And I think that is just so incredible.
As a film director and as a film editor, you look for those really beautiful stories that come together that create a movie. And I think we really have those powerful stories in this film, just with the events that happen and the characters and the locations. We're also going to reenact and dramatize some of the critical events in his life, and I think those will really help bring the story to life.
Part of Katsu Goto's story was that he was helping some plantation workers who were accused of setting a cane fire. And we really wanted to do some reenactments. And because of that, in order to capture a cane fire, we needed to go to Maui because there are no more sugar plantations on Hawaii Island. And it was quite an experience to be there with the heat, the smoke, all the critters running out of the cane fire. They had centipedes and cane spiders and rats and all kinds of things running out of there to escape the heat.
You know, his story has become a legacy.
今の学生さんたちはそもそもその日本から移民がこうして出てったんだっていうことで、特に若い男性たちが出てって、そして出稼ぎして帰ろうと思ってたんだということですよね。でその人たちが苦労をしたっていうこと、その人たちがどういうその人たちの子孫なのかっていうこと、それをやっぱり今の学生さんたちには知ってほしいというふうに思ってます。
I think this story can really help inspire people today, that there is a way that we can better understand each other. So these conflicts and these things, these tragic things that we talk about in the film, don't need to happen anymore. I mean, we can learn from these lessons. I see that in the people that I met in Japan, the people that we've interviewed in Hawaii, of how these two cultures and these two societies are coming together in a way that is supporting, loving, and caring. And that, I think, will inspire many, many people.
We still have new immigrants coming to Hawaii all the time. It's an important lesson to be learned. It's important for us to remember our history. We don't repeat some of the mistakes we made in our past. And to maybe be more tolerant of the new immigrants that we see coming in when we hear about the struggles and the work that the previous immigrants had to do in Hawaii.
It's a Hawaii story, it's an immigrant story, it's a national story. It's a story that needs to be told.
And I'm so happy to be working with Patsy. She's an inspiration. She's been part of this story for 20 years. I mean, she's been dedicated to getting the story out. And I'm very honored to be working with her on this because it is a really important story that everybody should know about.
Honoka'a today really embodies a village of international peace, where you have all of these different cultures and ethnicities coming together. That is the legacy that we gained 125 years ago with the efforts of Katsu Goto.
それを願ってたんじゃないかと思うしね。
I want everybody to learn and read about it, so that they can learn about him, As they're growing up, they'll think about it and remember him